Well, I don't know about you, but I like a good story, right? Everybody likes a good story. And we've been looking at some really unique stories in the Old Testament. Everybody likes a good drama. How many of you like spy flicks, spy stories? Anybody here like spy stories? I guess I'm the only one. And then when I think of spy stories, immediately the ones, if we're thinking about Hollywood and we're thinking about films, if we think about Hollywood spies, James Bond. Yes, there he is. James Bond, 007. Matter of fact, Hollywood has made a whole franchise out of My Name is Bond, James Bond. Tom Cruise brought the former television series Mission Impossible to the big screen. Then we have the Bourne Identity and all the Bourne trilogies that came with that. There's lots of those. And then we have Spy Kids, made for the kids. And as I was preparing for this message, I looked up the 50 best spy movies. Now, many of them that we already mentioned, you know, the whole James Bond thing, the Mission Impossible, the Bourne Identity, and all the Bourne films that came out with it, they were all part of it. Spy Kids was even a part of it. And there were a bunch that I haven't really even heard of. Now, I am not a big movie person. I don't watch too many movies, except maybe for, you know, the one movie we typically go out and watch as a family is every Christmas we go watch the new Star Wars flick. But we typically don't watch movies too much. So there were a whole bunch of movies that I didn't know about, but there were two names that immediately came, and they were both Alfred Hitchcock movies. One was a spy movie that Alfred Hitchcock made, was called The Man Who Knew Too Much. And the last one, with its famous crop duster scene, I even watched it just to kind of see what it was all about. Just the crop duster scene is North by Northwest. And you know what? There are mentions of spies in the Bible. Can you think of the mentions of spies in the Bible? Spied out the Holy Land. All right, you're ahead of me today. What else? What other spy stories do you remember? Spies going to Jericho, yeah. Remember, Joseph even accused his brothers of being spies? Remember that? And actually, believe it or not, Moses sent out spies 3 different times. Did you know that? Moses sent out spies 3 times, besides the one that we're going to talk about, including the one that we're going to talk about this morning. And probably the most famous is the one that was already mentioned. Caleb and Joshua, the 12 spies of Jericho, the spies who knew too much. I kind of played around with this, and I was going to actually play off a VeggieTales title. VeggieTales has the pirates who don't do anything. And I was going to kind of play off that title and say the 12 spies who didn't do anything. But I didn't. So not long after leaving Mount Sinai, the Hebrews, who are following a cloud by day and a pillar at night, settle in the wilderness of Paran. And they knew it was time to settle. Why? Because God's glory, this is after Mount Sinai, this is after God had given them the 10 Commandments, this is after they had built the tabernacle and all the worship accompaniments that go along with the tabernacle. And God said, when I enter the tabernacle, you stay, and when I leave the tabernacle and start leading, you follow. And so God had settled down in the tabernacle. The Lord's glory had entered the tabernacle, and while they were camped at a place called Paran, God tells Moses to put together an expedition party to scout out the land of Canaan. This is the land that has been promised to God's people for a long time. It's not just now, but it's been promised for many generations, long before the Israelites ended up in Egypt. And Moses is instructed to select one leader from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And here's the names of those 12 tribe leaders. They are Shammua, who is from the tribe of Reuben, Shaphat, who is from the tribe of Simeon, Caleb, who's from the tribe of Judah, Egal, from the tribe of Issachar, Hoshea, from the tribe of Ephraim. Now, Hoshea, we would now know as Joshua, when Moses named him Joshua. So Hoshea is the son of Nun, who is renamed Joshua. Palti from the tribe of Benjamin. Gaddiel from the tribe of Zebulun. Gadi from the tribe of Manasseh. Amiel from the tribe of Dan. Sether from the tribe of Asher. Nabi from Naphtali. And Geuel from Gad. 12 tribes, 12 leaders, and Moses pulls them together, and here's what he tells them to do. Go north through the Negev into the hill country and see what the land is like, and find out whether the people living there are strong or weak, few or many. See what kind of land they live in. Is it good or bad? Do they have walls, or are they unprotected like open camps? Is the soil fertile or poor? Are there many trees? And do your best to bring back samples of the crops you see. So, the 12 spies, 12 scouts, head north on a 6-week trip, 40 days, 6 weeks. Over the 6 weeks, they cover about 280 miles. They are all located down here in a little place called Kadesh Barnea. This would be the wilderness of Zin. And they travel through Beersheba, Hebron, what will become Jerusalem. There's Jericho there, Shechem, Hazor, all the way up to Beth Rehob, which is very near the current city of Damascus in Syria. Does anybody want to guess how far that is? From the bottom of the map to the top of the map? Anybody want to guess? 280 miles. 280 miles. So a 560-mile round trip in 6 weeks in the desert. With only, you think about us getting ready to go on a 6-week trip through the desert. What would we take? We'd have to take all kinds. Yeah, Jeff's camper is exactly what we do. And they're supposed to do this as a covert operation to discover what they are up against. On their way back, they stop at Hebron, which is near the bottom of the map. So they're probably about maybe 75 miles out of the camp. They find this huge bunch of grapes. They cut down a branch, and in order to take it home, 2 guys have to carry it. How would you like a bunch of grapes that big that would take 2 people to carry it home? But they did. 40 days later, the spies return, and they give a report to Moses on what they found. Not only did they give a report to Moses, but the whole community is surrounding, all of the Israelites are surrounding Moses, and they tell him what they found. And they show him this big thing of grapes. Now, remember that God said that this would be a land flowing with milk and honey. It was going to be a wonderful land. And so the spies bring back this big cluster of grapes. And they say, yep, the land is full of milk and honey, and it is full of wonderful produce. So far, so good. It has all the bounty that God has promised. But there is a problem. What's the problem? It's found in Numbers 13:28. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there. Guess what? They didn't like the fact that there were giants there. They were big, they were powerful. And this causes great concern among the people, and they start talking. You know how human nature is. They start talking among themselves. Yeah, there are giants there. They're going to destroy us. And Caleb quickly tries to settle down the crowd. He goes like, everybody just take a deep breath. And then he says, shouts over the crowd, Let's go at once to take the land. We can certainly conquer it. I like this guy. But the others disagree. Listen to their excuses. If we go there, we'll be slaughtered. They're bigger, they're stronger. They spread this report among the Israelites. And to seal the deal, this is what they told the people. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers. And that's what they thought, too. So you see there's this little interaction between Caleb and Joshua and the other 10 spies. And then the people of Israel start wailing. A familiar chorus that they've said long time ago. And here we go, here it comes. Why is the Lord taking us to this country only to have us die in battle? Our wives and our little ones will be carried off as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go stay in Egypt? Or actually for us to return to Egypt. What? God has promised you the land. Wouldn't it have been better for us to stay in Egypt? Remember what they were doing in Egypt? Making bricks without straw. But wait, there's more. Not only do they want to return to Egypt, but they plan a sedition. Do you know what a sedition is? A sedition is a plan to, or conduct, or a speech that incites people to rebel against the authority. And they do everything they can to try to overthrow Moses and Aaron and go back to Egypt. What? Seriously. They had already seen the hand of the Lord time and time again. Wait, you know the first time they said it would have been better for us to stay in Egypt was like 2 days out of Egypt when they ran up against the Red Sea and they're like, oh, the Lord brought us to die out here in the wilderness. And what did the Lord do? Whoosh! Opened up the Red Sea. A couple of days later, they end up and they find this well and they drink the water and it's bitter. Oh, why did the Lord bring us out here in the desert to die of thirst? God says, put a stick in the water, and he does. And they drink it in sweet water. A couple of days later, they're out in the middle of the desert again, and there's no well this time. And they're like, oh, Moses, we're going to die out here in the desert. If you're Moses, wouldn't you be getting a little tired of this? And so God says, Moses, go strike the rock. And so Moses strikes the rock, and water gushes forth. On and on. I think it happens almost 10 different times. From the time the people left Egypt to the time that they entered the promised land, crossed over the Jordan. 10 times the people said, wouldn't it be better if we were back in Egypt? Why did the Lord bring us out here to die? This is about middle way through all that. Why would they want to go back to Egypt and be slaves rather than the joy, the freedom that God had already given them? Beyond me. And yet, sometimes we do the same thing, don't we? We do the same stupid thing. We even as believers, sometimes we return to sin that we know is just a trap. So it's not unique to the Israelites. We do the same thing. God shows us over and over again the miraculous things he's done. And we say, oh, wouldn't it be better to be back there? No, it wouldn't. Moses and Aaron fall face down as Joshua and Caleb stand. And Joshua and Caleb tear their clothing because they're mourning for their people, the people that God, they were with. And they address the crowd. You want to hear some godly courage? Here it comes. The land we traveled through and explored is a wonderful land. And if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into that land and give it to us. It is a rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord and don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. immediately the crowd picks up stones and gets ready to stone Caleb and Joshua. They didn't want Aaron and Moses to be leader, and neither did they want Joshua and Caleb to be their leader. But Moses intervenes. God has said, enough. He goes to Moses, and Aaron, and Joshua and Caleb, he says, enough. You know what? I'm just going to wipe them out all. I'm going to kill them all. And they'll be done. And I'll raise up a whole new people for you to take into the promised land. Can you imagine God being so sick of you, he just wants to wipe you out? And yet that was the people of Israel. God was so sick of their whining and their, oh, we want to stay in Egypt, that he was about to wipe them off. But Moses, the person that the people were rebelling against, Moses goes and intervenes for God, for the people. Moses asked God if killing them and wiping them out is the best course of action. Can you imagine having that much boldness to go into God and say, God, do you really think that's the best thing to do? Do you really think that's going to be the best thing for your fame? Look what it says. Numbers 14, 17, and 19. He pleads with the Lord. Please, Lord, prove that your power is as great as you claimed. Because what Moses said was, if you wipe out your people out here in the wilderness, the Egyptian will say, yes, he was able to deliver us from the Egyptians. But he couldn't take his people into the promised land. What kind of God is he? And so Moses says, in keeping with your magnificent, unfailing love, please pardon the sins of these people, just as you've forgiven them ever since they left Egypt. I don't know that I'd have the courage to be Moses and go to God and say, forgive these people. They've been driving him crazy ever since. Oh, let's not forget about the golden calf incident. And his brother Aaron, who was involved in that one. Remember? Oh, we just put in all this gold into the fire and out popped the golden calf. What? This very same Moses, who's endured all this, pleads for God's people and says, don't destroy them. Pardon their sins. And amazingly, God listens. And he relents from killing them on the spot. But make no mistake, there are consequences to sin. There are consequences to disobedience. What were the consequences? Well, he goes, I will forgive them, but they will not go unpunished. You know, it's a lot like us today. We immediately think, if we say, I'm sorry, that we don't deserve the punishment. That's not the way it works. And so the Lord lays out the plan. Well, actually, the first thing that happens after God does that, he tells Moses the plan, and then immediately he kills the 10 spies who gave the bad report. They're done. They're out of there. And then he says that everyone who is 20 years and older will never enter the promised land. They will wander the promised land. They will wander the wilderness until they die. The ones who are 20 years and younger, they will enter the promised land. But even the generation who wasn't responsible for it is going to pay for their parents' sins. They will have to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, 1 year for every day the spies spent in the land. Wow. Wow. Now, that's all an incredible story. But wait, there's more. When the people heard the punishment, their hearts were filled with grief. But their hearts were not full of repentance. Because the very next morning, the people who said, no, we don't want to go in the land, and God rebuked them, you know what they did? They got up in the morning, they got on their backpacks, they got their stuff ready, and they headed north into the Negev to go take the land that God said you're not going into now. And Moses gets up, he hears the clamor going on, he goes, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're getting ready to go take the land. He goes, no, sorry, the plans have changed. We're wandering in the wilderness. And so Moses stays with the Ark of the Covenant, and these warriors go and they try to take the land. As God would have it, he would put some obstacles in their way. And the Amalekites, I believe is one of the groups that was up there, sent them packing back to their camp. Those rebels who rebelled against God are lucky to have escaped with their life. Because they rebelled against God after rebelling against God, after rebelling with God, after God had mercy. Moses' exact quote says, this is not a good idea, you'll be crushed. So, what can we learn from this? Last week, Pam talked about the risk and courage that is found in the story of Esther. And she challenged us as individuals to stand up for what is right. And in many ways, today's story is the same, but I really believe this story speaks to our courage and risk as a corporate body. In May of 1980, Keith Green released an album called So You Want to Go Back to Egypt. It was one of the first contemporary Christian albums that I had. And it had a very unique song on it, which was the title song. And I listened to it many times. And the first song is kind of funny. It's full of satire, and yet a very sobering. Just to give you a taste of what the complaining Israelites sounded like. So you want to go back to Egypt where it's warm and secure? Are you sorry you bought the one-way ticket when you thought you were sure? You wanted to live in the land of promise, but now it's getting so hard. Are you sorry you're out here in the desert instead of your own backyard? I like the first chorus. It says, eating leeks and onions by the Nile. Oh, what breath, but dining out in style. My life's on the skids. Give me the pyramids. The people wanted all the stuff. The Israelites wanted to play it safe, even though they knew what God had promised. They had heard that there were serious obstacles in the way. Yes, the land was indeed full of everything that God had promised, but there were giants in the land. What are we going to do with the giants? They preferred the comfort of the wilderness rather than face the giants that were in the land. The spies brought back a less than stellar report, and the people believed them, and Joshua said, no. Caleb said, no, we need to go into this land. And the people revolted. 10 spies died. 40 people, the people were punished to wander 40 years in the desert. And even after this, they said, God, why can't we just go back to Egypt? They preferred to go back to Egypt rather than claim God's promised land, even after seeing all of his amazing acts. We're really afraid of the unknown, and that's really not much different than you and I. Sometimes God tells us that we need to move forward, we need to move in a new direction. And we're much more comfortable to stay where we are. I believe that McCray Brook is in a very unique position. I believe that we're in a very unique position here in our community. I believe that the way we're structured, we know, you know what, we might be a small church, but you know what, we had so much fun a couple weeks ago when we had Vacation Bible School. That was amazing. I mean, we just had a blast. And I'm so glad that Dominic and Sophia got a chance to come, and we had Robert here. And yeah, we only might have ministered to 3 people, but we were obedient to do what God said. This fall, we're really trying to Pam and I are really starting to think about what we want to do, and we really want to do a midweek program for children this fall on maybe Tuesday night or Thursday night, but we want to do that. And matter of fact, a couple people have already said, hey, yeah, we'll bring our kids. If you do a midweek program, we'll be here. So be praying for me. Be praying with us in that. I'm excited about what God has in store. And you know what? Do we have our challenges as McCray Brook Wesleyan Church? Oh, absolutely. Sometimes when it comes to, you might think that I see with rose-colored glasses, that I see everything, rosy, but you don't know me when I'm at home. I'm like, oh man, if we could just change this or change this, it would be so much cooler. But I believe that, again, that McCray Brook is in a unique position that the other churches in our community are not in. I believe that we could do things that the other churches, because of their traditions or because of the way the structure of their church works, they can't do. But because of our structure and because of who we are, knowing, especially as I think about the 150 feet to down to that little church that's 150 feet from us that used to be where we meet, that 20 by 20 room with a wood-fired furnace in the middle, that when you came to Sunday school, you had to be bundled up in your gloves and your mittens and your coat. And they taught Sunday school until finally at worship time, it was warm enough that you could take off the coats. You know what? I admire some of those people. I admire the way it seems like they were willing to change the world for Christ. And so over the next, especially we're going to talk about some of this as a board at our next board meeting. And you know what? We do have giants in the land. Sometimes those giants are big and scary. But if we consider the story of the 12 spies, 10 of which who really thought they knew too much, and they said, let's not go. And then 2 who really did know what God said. God said, I want you to step out in faith. My question for you is, what do you believe God is calling McCray Brook to? I believe He's calling us to do challenging things. Things that, you know what? The only way to do them is have God on our side. The song that we opened with, I specifically asked Boyd to sing Trust and Obey. The song that we opened with this morning, Whom Shall I Fear? And then my Lord knows the way through the wilderness. All I have to do is follow. These songs all kind of fit together in this morning's message. Anna's going to come and share a song. It's not a desert song, but it's an ocean song. But I love the bridge. The bridge says, Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior.